Hi guys, Artiar here. I got requested for this tier list, for PvE tier list for a few times already. So I finally decided to make one. So I know everyone have their own decision or their own option or opinion on their own PvE tier list, right? Everyone have their own choices for their tier list. So this is my own tier list, okay? So it's not 100% accurate, but this will be based on what I usually use them on PvE. So this is an overall ranking for PvE content. I will judge it by my how often I'm gonna use them on the PvE content, or how strong are they on specific PvE content. Then overall, then I'll give them a position in this tier list. So for the PvE content, I'll usually judge with is for Falsetto Fantasy, the 3 bosses, and then I also will judge with Infinity Tower and Temporal Tower. I also judge with story mode. I also will judge with Calamity Tower a little bit. Then also trials, like what we usually have in trials, and the ritual bosses as well. Okay, so let's take a look. So we'll be using the tier list maker here, right? So we're going through by the alphabet. So Abigail is like one of the best buffer we have in game. She have AP push, she have shield, she have AB absorb, she have buffer as well. So I will put Abigail as strong. I won't put her like meta, but I'll put her strong. Okay. Then for Ahmed is the only healer that can heal your max HP percentage ceiling. Like if you face enemy like Yuhimi or hide, that can reduce your max HP cap. Ahmed is one of the counter to it. But so I have an R6 Ahmed. Then overall, from what I've used so often, I would say Ahmed is strong. I won't rate Ahmed like meta. Like having Ahmed and not having Ahmed is not really like a game breaking thing, in my opinion. Okay, so then the next one is Ashley. So Ashley can deal like passive from her Rainbow Bridge, and she is very often used in Chronos and like fast clearing team. Maybe like you're trying to do 4-turn Chronos, or maybe a few turns of Fafnir APAP, for example. Maybe sometimes you're gonna use Ashley, and I also quite use her often in what's that called again? Cube Miracle, and also Temporal Tower. So I would rate Ashley at strong. Okay, then for the next one, Biotina. Okay, Biotina, I only use her for one content, which is Falsetto Fantasy, but it's for the Dark Star Lord Team 1 only. Other than that, I don't really use Biotina on other PvE content, so I would say Biotina is decent, because I only use Biotina on one content. Like, if she can only be used in one content in PvE, I don't really rate her useful as well. Okay, Brewster. Brewster is very strong in PvE, especially in Chronos, or maybe you are trying to do short turn of Fafnir, APAC, some of the trials that is going with wave content, and even Falsetto Fantasy or even Cube Miracle. I use Brewster everywhere in PvE, so I will rate Brewster meta. R0 is already strong. R0, I'll rate him here. Then R2 above, I'll rate him as meta. Okay, then Cecilia. Cecilia is a healer, and Cecilia is mainly used in PvP content, not PvE. So in PvE wise, I rarely use them, or rarely use Cecilia in PvE content. Maybe you use Cecilia as a healer role for other content as PvE, I have no idea. But personally for me, I don't really use Cecilia in PvE. Okay, oh, by the way, this is only the legendary tier list, so I won't go through the epic and rare. Okay, then for Clara is an AB booster plus healer, and I mainly use her for some of the Falsetto Fantasy situation, but other than that, I don't really use Clara that much. And in story mode, she is very useful, so I will rate Clara as useful, not until strong. Okay, then Donna. Donna is the Esper they can only get from the PvP shop, right? The Point War shop. And he is very strong in PvP, used to be very strong in PvP. Now he's still strong, just that you have to build him in a certain way, and recently he have a lot of counter facing as well, and in PvE it's not really using that often as well, so I would rate Donna as I rarely use them, because I don't really use Donna on any kind of content. Like if you are talking about the Sonica that defend Esper Shines, Renzi plays a better job than Donna, so I don't really find Donna a good position in PvE content. Then Elliot is the one of the Esper that can max CD the target's cooldown skill, and Elliot's taunt, Elliot's CD up, Elliot's what's that called? CD reduction from the S3 when per hit is also very strong, and I mainly use him for Infinity content, Infinity Tower content. So I would say Elliot is useful because in like the previous the current Infinity Tower, we used to have the Anna, right? And then a lot of you don't have like Nusi, then the only stable way is gonna use Elliot. But other than this kind of special situation, I don't really use Elliot that much. So I consider him useful rather than strong. Okay, then Phatom Sister. Phatom Sister is having a very unique position because she have a speed leader of 35% boost, which is very unique. Very less Esper have that captain buff. And her skill is AoE. She can heal, she can AP down, she can revive your teammate, she can put invincibility, she can buff your team with defend up and speed. And I mainly use her now quite often. I mainly use her on Falsetto Fantasy now. And for my previous event, I also use her for Chimera Anomaly. So I would rate Phatom Sister strong. It's either like strong or useful. But since I use her a lot of at Falsetto Fantasy, I use her on sometimes on Cube Miracle if I want. And yeah, so I will rate Phatom Sister strong. Okay, Nusi in PvE, she's a cheat Esper. Because of her CD reduction, because of her AoE CD reduction, she can strip buff, she can AP down, she can defend break, she can CD extend, she can reset your team ally CD, she can AP push, she can buff speed up as well. Definitely very strong in PvE, especially and also in PvP as well, right? So in PvE, like our always in Infinity Tower, you have Nusi, everything will be in cheat code because your enemy can't cast their skill. So I would say Nusi is meta in PvE. Gabriel gives your team immunity, gives your team defend up, gives defend break, defend down debuff, give attack down debuff, and she deals like a lot of damage as well as a supporter. Because she gives like buff, debuff, she deals decent damage. Most important is the immunity. So I use her very often when I started the game, and I would say Gabriel is strong in most of the cases. She won't be really meta, but she's strong. I would say she's strong. Okay, Gaius in story mode, in Chronos and Cube Miracle, like Infinity Tower, you want all those like fast clearing phase. Gaius is one of the best choice you can have, right? So I would say Gaius is one of the meta, especially for new player as well, and mid player. Everyone loves Gaius. Not in the story mode wise, right? Okay, then I forgot about Everett. Everett is our free shimmer Esper that we can fuse to, but in PvE content, he doesn't really shine because he's a mainly PvP Esper. So I would put Elite. I already use them in the tier list. Then for Hyde is a PvP Esper that can counter attack if you put him with Avatara, and he is very strong in PvP content, but not really in PvE content because you can't really find a use or a position for him in your team. So I would put Hyde, and I rarely use them tier. Okay, so the next one is Ife. Okay, Ife should be useful in Andras, but because Kara actually does better than Ife, even though Ife should be the meta poison Esper, but in the end, it's not. Ife is just being cute here. So I'll put Ife as I rarely use them tier. Or maybe I can put this, you know. I can add a new row here. Then Ife have her own tier. Ife tier. Right? So Ife should have a pink tier. Then Ife have Ife tier. Okay. Then who's the next one? Intisa. Okay, Intisa is very strong in Chronos. I don't really see her using on Fortenso Fantasy or maybe Infinity Tower or maybe Temporal Tower, but she is mainly used on Chronos, and she used to be one of those cheese Esper for Chimera Anomaly Messenger Tower. So I would say Intisa is decent. Is decent that good position for Intisa? Okay, I would say Intisa, decent. I'll put Intisa decent here because I only see Intisa is being used on Chronos, right? Then other than Chronos, it's not really that necessary for Intisa to be used. So I would say Intisa is decent. Okay, then Jiangju Li in PvE content or PvP content is also not that good anymore, right? He used to be strong, he used to be meta, he used to be OP, but Jiangju Li is no longer that strong, that OP. Or you can see back my previous video about the Jiangju Li meme video. Yeah, Jiangju Li isn't that strong anymore, and I'll put Jiangju Li here. I rarely use them. Okay, Jinu Yao is having a passive that can cleanse all the debuff. Not all debuff, can cleanse one debuff when Jinu Yao takes her turn. She can transfer all the debuff from your team to one target enemy Esper. And she is one of the main unit for Faltento Fantasy. But other than Faltento Fantasy and Infinity Tower, you don't really use Jinu Yao that much. So I would say Jinu Yao is useful, but okay, I would say Jinu Yao is decent for PvE content, right? Because she only does the cleanse for Infinity Tower, the passive buff, passive debuff, and for Faltento Fantasy, for what boss is that? Sonica? Yeah, for Sonica boss. Other than that, not really. Okay, next one is Luis. Luis is a PvP Esper that deals single target damage. So in PvE wise, not really using him. So I'm just straight away going to throw him in. Rarely use them. Okay, Li Ling for PvE tier list out. I don't really use him that often anymore. I used to use him quite often when I start the game because I started with Li Ling, and because Li Ling had a nerf in the past, and I don't really find a position for him in PvE content anymore. So I put Li Ling, I rarely use them in PvE content. Okay, then for Lucas. Lucas is the free Esper as well. We can fuse him at the Esper fusion there, and he deals AoE AP reduction. He is able to steal AP, he's able to stun, he's able to AP absorb as well. But mainly you use him at maybe for Cento Fantasy situation when you want to AP down, and for Temporal Tower and Infinity Tower you're gonna need Lucas as well for AP down and maybe buff strip, right? So I would say Lucas is decent. Like, it's good to have, but is he that useful? I don't really think so. Okay, the next one, Narmer. Okay, Narmer, I'll straight away throw it here because Narmer is mainly a PvP Esper, and Narmer need to be R6 to be really that strong. Okay, Ollie. Ollie is one of the best Esper for Chronos clear, especially for fast clear, and if you want to stall Chronos team, you're gonna need Ollie as well. And Ollie is very strong in a lot of situations that, for example, Temporal Tower, or maybe the past event we used for the anomaly, the Chimera anomaly, we also use Ollie for a cheese team. So I would say Ollie is strong. Not just useful, it's strong. Because I see a lot of Ollie in Temporal Tower, Infinity Tower. I also use Ollie a lot of content, so I'll say yes. Then for Ophelia, Ophelia is a single target Esper that deals multi-hit. Not like multi-hit, it's like pursuit hit. And she deals massive amount of damage on single target. But other than that, not really. She can be used in Fafnir, but not a lot of situation. Even though I have R6 Ophelia, I don't really use her that often as well. So I will put Ophelia as I rarely use them. Oh, but Ophelia is good at Shadow Glow. Okay, then Raven. Raven is very strong in like Temporal Tower, Infinity Tower, Cube Miracle. I saw some of the players use Raven on Falsetto Fantasy, but I personally don't really use Raven in PvE content, but only for the speed clear content, then I'll use Raven. So I'll put Raven as decent in PvE. Then for Sally. Sally is a very strong healer, especially her S3. The buff can maintain as long as she haven't take 2 turns, and then the buff is always there. Every time your teammate takes a turn, then they will dispel 1 debuff. And she is able to give attack up buff. She's able to redistribute the HP for the whole team, which is very strong. So I would put Sally as strong tier for PvE. Then the next one is Sena. So Sena is able to AP clear the enemy's AP 100%, like clear it instantly. And she is a very strong buffer. She gives attack up and speed up. She's able to AP push by her S1. She's able to stun the enemy and AP clear the enemy 100%. So I would say Sena is strong. Okay, then Zora. Zora, because of the Gaia's appearance, because of the Gaia's positions, Gaia's kind of take over Zora's position or what Zora is doing, right? But I use Zora in Calamity Tower. I use Zora for Shadow Fire. Other than that, I don't really use Zora. So I would say Zora is decent because I do use Zora, just that not that often. Then TeV. Okay, TeV have his own unique debuff. I mean the 3 color that's surrounding the enemy. That's a unique debuff because you can also apply that debuff for shadow bosses, which is very unique because shadow bosses cannot get applied by debuff, right? And TeV is dealing massive amount of damage in PvE and also PvP. And TeV with Relief set deals massive amount of damage, especially with Liam now. It's even better. So I would say TeV is meta for PvE. Okay, then what do we have here? We have Tangshan, Monkey King. So Tangshan have a very unique kit as well because he can deal AoE damage, not like 5 target AoE damage. He is able to deal to 3 enemy, and he have a pursuit kit. So if your RNG chance is very good, you can keep bonking them until they die. Yeah, so I would say I do use him sometimes, but not really often. So I would say Tangshan is decent. Okay, then TA. I would say TA is in meta because I use TA like almost all of the floor for Infinity Tower, Temporal Tower, Cube Miracle, and some of the situation for Falsetto Fantasy. I use like her kit is just too strong, too useful of the AP swapping, the AP absorb, the AP redistribution, the AP down, everything that she does for AP, that she's able, that like the content that can be AP down, she's just perfect. Right, perfect. So I would rate her meta. Then Tricky. Tricky is like one of the meta esper for Infinity Tower content, right? Because like one of the Infinity Tower debuff is when the enemy take their turn, they will dispel one debuff. And this thing is gonna trigger Tricky passive, and they're gonna become a stone, and then they're gonna reduce HP because of Tricky's passive. And other than Infinity Tower, Tricky is also very useful for Calamity Tower. But other than that, not really. So I would say Tricky is useful because of the Infinity Tower thing. Like having Tricky and not having Tricky in Infinity Tower is a different situation, right? If you have played through this month Infinity Tower, you might get what I mean. Okay, Unus. Unus used to be one of the best Shimmer Esper, but not really anymore. Unus is now mainly used for AP pushing, but other than that, nothing else left. Unless you are R2 Unus, you are able to buff attack up, right? But if you are R0 Unus, you won't be using Unus a lot in PvE content. So I would say Unus is, I rarely use them. Even though I have R2 Unus, but I still use other Esper to take his slot, so I don't really use Unus anymore. So I put Unus in rarely use them slot. Embla. Okay, Embla. So let's say Embla is R2, right? So R2 Embla is the meta Esper in PvE content, like in Falsetto Fantasy, in like APAP. If you have R6 Embla, you can do like 4-turn APAP. And Embla is very good in like those trials as well. And yeah, so Embla is one of the meta Esper. Yinchuan. So if R0 Yinchuan, I would say I would just put Yinchuan here, right? If R0. But R2 Yinchuan is definitely going to meta in PvE. He can be used in Fafnir, Falsetto Fantasy. If you want to use him in Infinity Tower or Temporal Tower, it's also fine. And he is very strong in high score team. For example, the trials as well. The trial we used to have for the high score. Yinchuan R2 above is one of the must-have Esper to hit the high score as well. So Yinchuan definitely have the position for meta, but these two have to be R2. Then Chongji. Chongji AP swapping, not AP swapping, HP swapping, and his kit for S3 is Pain, S2 have Stun, then S1 deals decent damage. He used to be my Sonica team in Falsetto Fantasy, but since I use Renzi now, I don't really use Chongji anymore for PvE content. Alright, PvP he is very strong. So, but for PvE content, I don't really use him, so I'll put him here. Okay, then the next one, Matteo. Whoa, Matteo. Matteo used to, like, most of the players trash talk Matteo so bad when Anomaly came out, and a lot of people refused to pull him. But even though I love Matteo's kit, so I decided to pull him. So in the end, Matteo is now mainly used in Fafnir and all Falsetto Fantasy content, all kind of bossing content. Sometimes in trial you can also use Matteo. So I would say Matteo is strong, or maybe meta. Okay, I would say Matteo is strong. Because other than bossing content, you don't really need Matteo. So I would say Matteo is strong, but is it like meta tier? Maybe not. Maybe not. Okay, Ethan. So Ethan's buff is very unique, especially if you have R2 Ethan. You're gonna mainly use Ethan for all those speed team, because you want to fast clear the content, right? For example, maybe you want to build him in Fafnir, or maybe build him in APAP or Chronos. It could be possible. And Infinity Tower, if you're like new player or mid player, Ethan can also help you out to cover up the crit rate up and the crit rate up 20% from the Ethan's kit. And Falsetto Fantasy, not really using him. Trial sometimes. So I would say Ethan is useful in PvE content. Then who else? Camille. Camille, not really. I'm not really using here. I'm not much comment for Camille. Camille is like the bleed Esper AoE. Used to be good in Chimera Anomaly, but after that, not really. I don't really see Camille usage on any kind of content, right? So Camille is I rarely use them. Elin now is very strong in Falsetto Fantasy. Is very strong on her Calamity Tower. Then sometimes in Trials, but other than that, not really. So I'll put Camille as decent. Not Camille, sorry. Elin as decent. But she is very strong in Falsetto Fantasy. Then Loraa. Loraa is at the same tier as Gaius, both doing the same job, but there's some difference. Like Gaius will take some turn away, then deals a lightning strike, but Gaius is able to share like a passive of crit rate and accuracy, depends on the human mode or god mode. Then Loraa is able to deal AoE damage and high single target damage as well. And her unique thing is she will automatically refresh her skill based on the wave. So like the wave content, or maybe you are doing like fast turn for Chronos, or maybe Apex or Fafnir, you're gonna need her to clear the wave fast. So meta tier for PvE. Who else? Shenpin. I'm not gonna say anything. Shenpin is definitely here. Okay, let's just don't talk. Shenpin is definitely there. Then Yuhime. I don't really even use Yuhime at all, you know. So I just put Yuhime here. I rarely use her. Then Yamato. Yamato have to be strong at R6, though I don't really use him as well, so I'm gonna put it here. Then Jini. Jini is amazingly good for PvP, but for PvE, I don't find a use or a position for her, so I put her here. Then Javid. Javid's kit is very good in Calamity Tower, but other than Calamity Tower, I can't find a usage for him, so I'll put Javid at I rarely use him. Valeria. Valeria is now mainly used for Falsetto Fantasy content, and only just that. For me, I only use Valeria for Falsetto Fantasy content. Other than that, like Retro or like Trials or like Infinity Tower, Cube Miracle, Temporal Tower, I don't really use Valeria. So Valeria, I'll put her decent. Then for Lien, I would say Lien is very strong, especially some of the trial content that you need a very strong healer. Lien is one of the good position there. Because the shield that she provides is very thick. She's able to revive the target within the bubble buff. And then yeah, it's one of the strong Esper, especially in story mode. If you're like early or mid game Esper, you have Lien, right? Mainly I don't think your team can die because of Lien. Okay, Hilda. Hilda is now mainly used for Andras and a lot of content such as Infinity Tower. Hilda is one of the meta. Temporal Tower, Hilda is also one of the meta. Hilda is also now mainly used for Falsetto Fantasy, Poison, Esper, for Dark Starlord, and also for the Probator Sleep Esper. So Hilda, I would say strong. Or maybe meta. It's hard to decide for this part. Okay, I would say it's a hard decision for Hilda. Strong. Okay, I'll put her strong. Okay, then what do we have here? We have Nora. So Nora provides attack leader buff for 40%. Nora is very strong in Andras. Nora is very strong at other than Andras, is there anything for PvE? No, right? At least for me. So I think Nora, I'll put her decent. Okay. Then Farah is a PvP Esper to control and DPS, but I rarely use her for PvE content. Tolan is a PvP Esper, and I don't really use him, or I don't really see him in PvE content, so I'll put him at rarely used tier. Anna, okay. Anna can solo PvE content, like for certain tower, but Anna is not gonna use in bosses, right? But Anna can solo content. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna put Anna here. Anna have his own reason, right? So she can solo some content. She can deal damage. She herself is a survival, but she was not gonna give you high score or other thing. But she definitely can clear PvE content for you, especially like Temporal Tower, Infinity Tower. She can clear content for you. So I'll put her meta. Okay, before maybe it's Archibald. Archibald, I would say he is very useful because of his dispel. He's able to force the enemy target just to do normal attack damage. So Archibald definitely have his own position for PvE content. Mavis. Okay, I would say Mavis is a meta. Even though he only shines in Falsetto Fantasy because of the damage buff. But other than that, in story mode, especially for those early and mid-game player, having Mavis and not having Mavis is a totally different gameplay for you. So I would say Mavis is a meta PvE Esper. So Ginchu. Ginchu is a Andras killer, and it's kind of sad that Ginchu R2 doesn't work as what I thought after the testing, right? So I already said that Ginchu's R2 video showcase as well is not really that impressive. So Ginchu in the end, I would say he is decent. Okay. Liam have a very unique kit because of all those assists, and now mainly used in Falsetto Fantasy. But other than that, I don't really see him his content yet, but I'll rate him useful because of his unique kit that he is providing. Okay, let me double check if I'm missing any Esper. Okay, no, I didn't miss any legendary Esper. So this is my own PvE tier list for Dislyte, and this is the up to patch 3.3.6. and feel free to comment down on the video, like maybe you have some other comment or feedback about this tier list. Maybe you think Clara may go to strong, or maybe you think Matthew doesn't suits in the strong, for example, right? Feel free to give me the feedback about this tier list. And this tier list is not absolutely correct because this is all just based on my experience in the game, my own comment and all my own usage for the game. Okay, so feel free to comment down on the in this video and like share your thoughts about it, right? So hope you guys enjoyed the video and see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.